So we continue our teaching series, The Case for Faith. And this morning, I want to talk about a statement that I know I have personally heard from neighbors, friends, and so on, that says this: evolution explains life. And because of that, we don't need God. God isn't needed. Evolution explains what life is all about. And this whole conversation and debate between creationism and evolution is something that is real and is taught in our biology classrooms around our city, and is probably something that is advocated in our college and university campuses. Unfortunately, sometimes as churches, we shy away from these discussions, which is a great tragedy. We need to talk about it. And so this morning, I am going to try my very best to talk about this very important topic. And my prayer is obviously in the next 20, 30 minutes, I'm not going to delve into all the details, but I want to give you enough that'll build your faith. And maybe somebody's invited you to church today, and maybe this is your statement. You've uttered it, you believe it. Evolution explains life, and so you've journeyed through life without God because you don't feel He's needed. I thank you for coming. We're all on a journey and we're all learning. And I'm so glad that you're here. And I just trust that you just open your ears just for the next few moments and hear a few thoughts that I have to say about this topic. Several years ago, a gentleman by the name of Ronald Keith Williamson, he was a minor league baseball player, and Ronald got himself in trouble with the law. There was an accusation that he actually took the life of a young lady in their small community, and so he stood trial for murder. After all the evidence was given, one of the key components of evidence that the lawyer brought up was that there were hair fragments that seemed to be of the same consistency as Ronald's hair on the scene of the murder. And so because of that, the jury made a conclusion that Ronald Keith Williamson murdered this young lady in their small town. And because of that, he was thrown in prison. And he was on death row, awaiting his execution. All the way through, Ronald Keith Williamson was adamant that he did not murder this young lady, but because of the evidence, in particular because of these two fragments of hair that experts said seemed to be consistent to Ronald's hair, caused him to be thrown in prison waiting for his execution. Years later, as he was in prison year after year, new technologies developed and DNA sampling was made available. They discovered that Ronald Keith Williamson, in fact, was telling the truth all along. He did not commit the murder. In fact, because of DNA evidence, they convicted another person of the murder of this young lady, and Ronald Keith Williamson was released from prison. Now, you might say, what does that have to do with the evolution conversation? Because sometimes we take what seems to be hair fragments, and we build a whole theory on something that maybe if we dig a little deeper, if we were sincere with the facts and the evidence, we might actually discover that there is an intelligent design behind all of God's creation. And so this morning, I want us to talk about this subject that so clearly is an important subject to talk about. At first glance, many have concluded, almost like this analogy of the hair fragments, many at a glance have concluded the development of life is the result of a natural process, natural selection, without any need or resort to a creator. However, in most recent years, many biologists, many biochemists and researchers, and not just Christians, are pointing to the fact that upon further study of the research, there might be something about the intelligent designer perspective. In fact, an increasing number of scientists contradict Darwin by concluding that there is an intelligent designer behind the creation and the development of life. In fact, faith is sometimes seen as the opposite of science. And we've kind of seen them as two things that compete against each other. But today, my prayer is that we would see science as actually an aid to enriching our faith. We don't need to be afraid of science. We don't need to be afraid of the facts, because what I feel we will find is if we're honest with the facts and the scientific evidence, we will conclude that in fact there is an intelligent designer. You see, faith is a reasonable step in the same direction that the evidence is pointing. Faith goes beyond merely acknowledging that the facts of science and history point toward God. So we got to go beyond that. It's responding to those facts by investing trust in God, a step that's fully warranted due to the supporting evidence. So this morning, sometimes churches have said, science is the enemy. Don't think about science. Don't study science. Don't research science. It's all about faith. Who cares about that? You just got to believe. Instead, we need to take hold of the science. We need to take hold of the research, because my hunch is, as we do that, it will only enrich and strengthen our faith, because the data points to an intelligent designer. Take James Tour, a nanoscientist, who said this: only a rookie who knows nothing about science would say science takes away from our faith. If you really study science, it will actually bring you closer to God. I think he's onto something. George Coyne, astrophysicist. These are smart people, friends. They've dedicated their lives to these studies. He says this: nothing we learn about the universe threatens our faith. It only enriches it. And so we don't need to be afraid to talk about science. We don't need to be afraid to have those conversations, because at the end of the day, the facts actually will point to an intelligent design. This morning, before I go into the scriptures, we need to talk about science. There are many different disciplines of science. In fact, I want to talk about 6 of them. There are, this morning, 6 scientific disciplines that actually point to the existence of an intelligent designer. They actually point to that. Let's take the evidence of cosmology, for instance. Cosmology is a branch of astronomy that deals more with the origin and the structure of the universe and the planets. And based on the data related to cosmology, virtually all cosmologists now agree that the universe actually had a starting point, that it began at some specific point in the past. There was a starting point. That's an important piece that has been concluded. Why? Because the scriptures say, in the beginning, God created. There is a starting point that points to an amazing truth, that whatever begins to exist has a cause. It has one who commenced it. And it points to an intelligent design. So when we look at cosmology, we see that evidence actually is pointing to the intelligent design perspective. What about physics? How many here love physics? 3 of us. Rick, you're a physics teacher, aren't you? Well, kinda. Science. Don't you teach science? Technology. Science and technology. Isn't that a course? Anyways. The evidence of physics. It has been said that the energy density of space is as precise as throwing a dart from space and hitting the bullseye just a trillionth of an inch in diameter on Earth. Now, has anybody ever played darts? I grew up playing darts. And I got to tell you, I'm only 10 feet away, and I can't hit that red bullseye about that big. I'm hitting the wall. Not a good thing, right? Mom and Dad, it was gone within minutes, that dartboard. But listen to this. In terms of the space, it's so perfectly aligned. It has been said that the energy density of space is as precise as throwing a dart from space and hitting a bullseye just a trillionth of an inch in diameter on Earth. Only God. Only God. You see, former atheist Patrick Glenn, and I put that on purpose, former atheist. Here's a man who was studying physics and began to realize there is a creator behind it. He said this: the concrete data points strongly in the direction of the God hypothesis. There is evidence not only in cosmology, not only in physics, but friends, even in astronomy. Astronomers are discovering things that are blowing their mind. John A. O'Keefe says, if the universe had not been made with the most exacting precision, we can never have come into existence. It is my view that these circumstances indicate that the universe was created for man to live in. God created it all for the apex of his creation, the human family to live in. And the gravity and all the planets and how all it works from the distance between the sun, the moon, the planet Earth is all done in precision. And if it was just a little bit off, there would be catastrophic consequences. In fact, gravity is such a miracle in itself. If gravity were just 0. Now I got to read this right. If gravity were just 0.0000000000001, 1/trillionth of 1% stronger. If gravity was just that 1/trillionth of 1% stronger, our universe would have reversed course long ago. It would have collapsed catastrophically, ending in a big crunch, the opposite of a Big Bang. Likewise, if gravity were just 1/trillionth of 1% weaker, our universe would have flown apart so rapidly that planets, stars, galaxies, all the basic parts of the universe would never have had a chance to coalesce. We'd all be dust in the wind. Friend, what does all that point to? Accident? It points to a creator who put it perfectly in play, who continues to put it perfectly in play. In fact, Sir Fred Hoyle, a Cambridge astronomer who was a vowed atheist, said this after doing many calculations. Hoyle discovered that the odds of our being accidents of nature are comparable to the likelihood of a tornado that sweeps through a junkyard and assembles scrap metal into a fully functioning Boeing 747. Astronomy points to an intelligent design. What about biochemistry? You see, biochemists have discovered some absolutely amazing biological systems which far exceed the capacity of human technology, which in turn point toward a transcendent creator. In fact, biochemist Michael Behe said this, design. He concludes his studies point to one word, design. I believe, he says, that irreducibly complex systems are strong evidence of a purposeful, intentional design by an intelligent agent. Friend, even biochemistry points to a creator. What about biological information? Cambridge-educated Stephen Meyer said this, when we know books, we know that books and computer codes are designed by intelligence. And the presence of this type of information in DNA also implies an intelligent source. An intelligent source. There's so much evidence of God in our biology. And sometimes in a moment in some biology classes, God is seen as something that's not even on the table anymore. But yet when you look at some of the masterpieces of biology, you are overcome by the fingerprints of God. Let's take, for instance, the wonder of the dandelion. The ones that we want to tear out from the grass. You see, the dandelion is an amazing part of biology. Dandelion flower heads are perfectly designed for maximum seed creation and dispersal. Each yellow flowering head can disperse 50 to 175 seeds to the wind. One single dandelion can create more than 2,000 seeds. Fingerprints of God. In fact, a recent column in the New York Times hailed the dandelion for being as close to a biological miracle as a scientist could dare to admit. When we think of the ocean and the bottom of the ocean, there are plants hundreds of feet below the surface. How do plants grow in the dimness, the darkness of an ocean floor? Well, it turns out scientists have discovered that the ocean floor actually has vents that allows nutrients to come out of and allows those plants to grow. Vents at the bottom of the ocean? Who put the vents? Who put the vents? Biology is filled with evidence of an intelligent designer who's behind it. Then there's the evidence of consciousness. Friends, we need to ask ourselves, if the universe began with dead matter having no consciousness, how then do you get something totally different from that? How then do you get conscious, living, thinking, feeling, believing creatures like you and I from material that didn't have any of it? It started with the mind of God. It started with His mind, and He created us in His image. That's how it started. See, science is filled with evidence. We don't need to see science as the enemy of faith, but we need to see science as something that actually enriches our faith. And there are experts and researchers that are a whole lot smarter than me who have pointed to this very fact that there is an intelligent designer behind it all. And we need to ask ourselves, who is this designer? We need to identify the designer. And this morning, I bring to you the designer. His name is God. Creator God, who in the beginning created the heavens and the earth. Our God is creator. In the beginning, you laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. Not only is God creator, but He's unique. Our God is unique. Deuteronomy 4:35 says, "You are shown these things so that you might know that the Lord is God. Besides Him, there is no other." So our God is creator. He's unique. And our God is uncaused and timeless. Have you ever had your children ask you, but where, okay, God did it, but who created God? Psalm 90. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. He's uncaused. He's timeless. He's all knowledgeable. He's all knowing. Psalm 104 says, "How many are your works, Lord? In wisdom, in all knowledge, you made them all. The earth is full of your creatures." Our God is creator. Our God is unique. He's uncaused. He's timeless. He's all knowledgeable, and He's all powerful, friend. Prophet Nahum said this, "The Lord is slow to anger, but He is great in power." And yet, He's so amazingly great and all powerful, He's also caring. Psalm 33 says, "The Lord loves righteousness and justice. The earth is full of His unfailing love." The fact that right now He's holding gravity exactly where it needs to be, not 1/1,000,000th of a percent stronger or 1/1,000,000th of a percent weaker, is an example of His unfailing love towards you. He's also all present. He's like a circle without a circumference. There's no limit. There's no edge to Him. Psalm says, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go to the heavens, you're there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast." You're never alone. This amazing, uncomparable God is with you through the very dark moments of your life and through the great victories of your life, because He's all present. And He gives us a purpose. He's a God of purpose. See, Colossians 1:16 says this, "For in Him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through Him and for Him. God gives us purpose. You and I are the apex of His amazing creation because He's put a purpose on your life. And so if God puts the galaxies in place and holds them in place, assuredly He's big enough to come into your difficult circumstance that you might find yourself in today. He's more than able to walk into your marriage. He's more than able to walk into your son or daughter's life. He's more than able to strengthen you through difficulty. He's more than able because He's the God of wonders. And so when we think about this topic, about evolution versus creationism, we need to understand that there is evidence all over the place that point to an intelligent designer, and His name is God. Friends, cosmology points to God. Physics points to God. Astronomy, biochemistry, biological information, consciousness points to a God who is our creator. He's unique. He's uncaused. He's timeless. He's all knowledgeable. He's all powerful. He's caring. He's present, and He gives you a purpose today. You are not an accident. You are intentionally designed by an amazing designer. And He's got a purpose and plan for your life. I conclude with these thoughts. You see, when we have discussions like the one we're having this morning, yes, we talk science. Yes, we talk theology. But I need to expose something to you. We're in a spiritual battle. There are spiritual battles that happen in classrooms, in biology classes, in elementary school, high schools, universities, colleges, in your workplaces, around the office, around the water cooler. And we've got a fragment of hair here that seems to be of consistency. You know what they mean by that? It means it was the same color, it had the same texture, but in the end of the day, it wasn't the man who murdered that lady. It seemed to be fragments. Friends, may we not get sidetracked from fragments here and fragments there and make a conclusion without actually looking at the facts, without looking at the research, and without opening our hearts and saying, God, You're my creator today. And so there's a spiritual battle. Because there's nothing more than the evil one wants to do than to separate you from God. And for some of you, the greatest hurdle has been this topic. And it has stopped you from taking that step of actually fully surrendering your life to God. Because there's a spiritual battle over ideas in your mind. And it shouldn't surprise us because in Genesis 3 verse 5, what is the serpent who comes in a deceptive way? That's his way. What does he say in the garden? He says, for God knows that when you eat from that tree that He told you not to eat, your eyes, they're actually going to be open. And you will be like God, knowing good and evil. What's he saying there? He's saying, God feels threatened if you know what He knows. And if you eat that, you're going to be smarter than God Himself. So go for it. Eat of the forbidden fruit. Fast forward to 1 John 2:16. The word says, all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life, is not from the Father, but is of the world. Pride of life. What does that mean? The pride of life is the ego. We try to make ourselves something significant. And when we put as the created ones, the ones who understand or pretend to understand all the galaxies and how everything works and that we don't need God, we might have fallen into the pride of life. We might have elevated ourselves in a place where we were never meant to sit. Fact is, if we humbly put our lives in the Maker's hands and we acknowledge that He is created and we are the created ones, He is the creator and we are the created ones, friends, you can live your life with an amazing purpose that makes an enormous difference. The fact of the matter is, recent research has told us Our experts, our researchers told us that we can only see 5% of the galaxies. So all the research we've done is only about 5% of what's really out there. The grandeur of God's creation. May we not put ourselves in places where we were never meant to sit. Our God is the ultimate creator. We don't need to be afraid of science. Science will enrich and build your faith, friend, because the facts point to an intelligent designer. Would you stand with us? Because today we want to worship this God of wonders. That's why we worship him. Because he's our creator. He's the one who gives us purpose. And so today, maybe you've come and you've felt absolutely overburdened with life's circumstance, friend. You can hold your head up to the skies, literally, and know today that your God is supreme and over your life, and he'll never leave you because he's all powerful, he's all present, he cares for you, and he's not going to abandon you. Let's worship the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords.